right, welcome back to Sittin with Sam. We are talking now about the mentor. The mentor walks beside you, setting a good example. They patiently and consistently teach and train you how to successfully carry out the will of God, applying His word in your life. They may also train you in specific practical areas. Dad, help us understand when you talk about the mentor versus when you talk about the advisor, which we talked about in the last chapter. What's the difference between an advisor and a mentor?
No, the advisor may just give you advice on one matter, answering one question or one situation, whereas a mentor has a relationship with you.
Right.
And you observe their life, they observe your life, and they walk along beside you, and because you see and know each other, and there's an emotional, spiritual, and relational connection.
Right.
They're able to help you in a deeper, longer-term manner.
Okay. And we see examples all over the Bible.
Yes.
Obviously, Jesus. And his 12, but even there, he had the three,
Yes.
Peter, James, and John, that he
Yes.
really mentored. Moses and Joshua, Elijah and Elisha.
Yeah.
One of my favorites, Paul and Timothy. Love their relationship. But actually, what I want to ask you about is more of a personal example. One of your earliest, greatest mentors, Chuck Lucas, who just passed away.
Yes.
You know, not everyone watching may know who Chuck Lucas was, but the impact that he had on you and other people that he mentored is tremendous. Tell us, why was that mentoring relationship so special in your life, in your earlier years?
Well, when I was a college student, we prayed together, and he worked alongside of me and helped me. And then when I became an intern and ultimately a campus minister, I got to observe his life every day. He observed mine every day. He set a tremendous example in his devotion to God, his preaching, his teaching, his loyalty to the Bible, his faith, his courage, his perseverance. And yet he invited me into his life, into his home. I got to observe him and the way he lived with his wife and kids. And it just inspired me and taught me so much.
Yeah. You know, you have shared with me many times, growing up, you always had a lot of ambition,
Right.
but you struggled with confidence.
Right.
And that Chuck helped you to to break through.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the impact that you've had, I don't think would have happened without a man like Chuck mentoring you.
Without him coming after me and asking me to do what he got me to do, I would have never had the courage to do that, or the vision to see it for myself. And then he brought me in and took me along.
Yeah.
And was with me all the way, and it took me places I would have never gone otherwise.
Right. You know, what's interesting listening to you talk, I'm sure he taught you a lot of things and said a lot of things to you, but really what you're remembering is not necessarily just what he taught you, it's what you just watched.
I observed.
You just saw it. I think about the scripture where you quoted in the chapter, Paul tells Timothy, he says, Timothy, you know all about my way of life. And in a mentoring relationship, it's not just passing information, there's sharing of life and of heart, and that's very special.
I would face situations, and he would not necessarily be there at the moment, but I would say I was with him when he dealt with this with someone else or this situation, and I would try to imitate his example that was godly and righteous, where I saw him setting a good example of following Christ.
Right. And you know, Chuck, not a perfect man, not a perfect leader, and yet God used him. I think sometimes we're afraid of mentoring because, well, what if they mess up? And you know, they probably will.
Yes.
Unfortunately, but that's still God's perfect plan. One imperfect person helping another.
Yes.
You know, that kind of leads to my next question. Do you have any words of caution for those who are involved in mentor-mentee relationships?
If you're mentoring someone, realize that your goal is to help them become a follower of Christ.
Right.
And you yourself are not perfect. You're just helping them to follow Christ. And so realize, okay, I'm not perfect. I may make mistakes. And you can
Right.
even ask them, how am I doing? Am I hurting your feelings? And are you feeling any pressure from me? Make it that way. If you're being mentored, realize, okay, I'm seeking to follow Christ. He or she that's mentoring me made a mistake here, but that doesn't mean I shut down the whole relationship
Yeah.
because of it. Things they're teaching me accurately from the Bible and
Right.
setting a good example, I'm going to imitate.
Right. I think to have this type of relationship requires a great deal of trust, a great deal of humility,
Yes.
vulnerability. But boy, when you give your heart like that, when two people give their hearts back and forth like that, it's very, very
Yes.
special. And it's special for me because I'm sitting here with the greatest mentor of my life. And so thank you for mentoring me.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful.
You're welcome.
We'll be back. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for coming.